When a video game flops or disappoints the audience, it is often easy to go back and claim that the main concept behind the product was flawed. Yet in Mirror's Edge Catalyst's case, it is not that apparent what went wrong. Fans got exactly what they wanted for the sequel, the open world. But all that clears is not gold, and something didn't quite click at the end. So why did the best, most intuitive and logical idea to make an open world Mirror's Edge not work? Roll the intro. To understand why Catalyst didn't work, we need to take a step back, refresh our minds, and play through the original Mirror's Edge. Released all the way back in 2008, produced by DICE and published by EA, the first title of the series was what many would consider an intriguing and charming experience. Parkour was not a completely new mechanic 10 years ago, and 3D platformers have been around for quite a long time as well, but no game had the audacity to go first person. This was a gamble for the Swedish team, and the resulting game delivered one of the most unique experiences the gaming world has ever seen. Now, we're not doing a full review of the original game, so long story short, the original Mirror's Edge had many merits but also some shortcomings. The artistic direction of the title is sublime to say the least. The gameplay, while stiff at times, is permissive and overall fun, and the level design was well thought out. Some problems that counterbalance the experience were its short longevity, about 4 to 5 hours, and some slow moments throughout the adventure where rhythm was inconsistent. But overall, a good experience nonetheless. There is no reason for you not to give this title a shot even today for a couple of euros. One of the main characteristics of the original game is its linear level design. The developers were risking quite a lot trying this new gameplay formula, so while the spectacular Crystal City invites the eye to explore the horizon, the seemingly endless Metropolis ends quite sharply because the designers wanted to keep the action in selected corridors. It would be absurd to criticize a game because it's not a sandbox, yet it would be naive to dismiss how inviting the nameless city is for the players. Look at those skyscrapers and glass ceilings, don't you wish to take a detour? It is important to note that back in 2008, open worlds were the hot new thing, and titles like Assassin's Creed have proven that parkour and open worlds combined worked. In contrast, Mirror's Edge was missing out. So while the first-person parkour gamble was one, the title didn't quite leave the footprint it desired, and the game developers knew this. Fans wanted one thing for a potential sequel, an open-world experience. This was the best idea DICE had to consider for Mirror's Edge Catalyst, and considered they did. The sequel came out in 2016 to mixed reactions. The game wasn't awful, it wasn't even bad, but simply didn't work. The plot was decent and simple enough to follow. The art style kept improving, and thanks to the new Frostbite engine, this game looks astonishing, breathtaking. But the gameplay? Well, that's a problem and a half. In a nutshell, Catalyst is simply not fun to play, and the quote-unquote best idea didn't work. But why? There are many reasons why the open world, and therefore Mirror's Edge Catalyst as a whole, didn't work. From bad level design to the flawed gameplay structure. As Murphy Slow states, anything that can go wrong, will go wrong. If you didn't play the game, you might be confused why it flopped. After all, just by looking at the recorded background, it is quite evident that the game did what it promised to do. Mirror's Edge in an open world environment. More routes are available, and nothing stops me from going left, right, climbing up or dropping down just like in Assassin's Creed. Yet, the freedom given feels like a farce, like if the game was even more linear than before. Developers have the bad habit of assuming there is no need to give care to level design in open world games. They will just solve themselves since the adventure is open-ended. Yet players are wiser in this regard, because they can spot the difference between good and bad open worlds, and the nameless city of Mirror's Edge Catalyst, while pretty and shining like no other, is barely playable. Let's start with the game map. Apart from being filled with useless information, do you notice something odd about its shape? It's not quite squared, it's more like a thin rhombus. While this may fly under the radar to some, this is one of the biggest problems of the game. While the title is free roaming, due to its peculiar shape, the player is forced to traverse the same location and the same corridors countless times. What's the point of a massive metropolis if you are going to visit the central station every single time you want to go somewhere? The southern part of town is literally just an O-shaped corridor with a lagoon in the middle. No matter where you place your flare on the minimap, you will spend most of your adventure converging to the same 3 routes. The reason why games tend to have square maps is because they wish to optimize the area within it. Take a game like Zelda Breath of the Wild. If you find yourself in Rito Village and want to reach the Dwelling Peaks, you can take this route, but you could also take another route, or another, and so on. Any point B can be reached from any point A without being forced to specifically pass every single time by the same landmark. In Catalyst, the map design forces the player to hop in predetermined corridors, since it is impractical to deviate from the one given. Mirror's Edge Catalyst proposes an unnavigable open world, filled with invisible, linear highways rather than branching paths. It baffles me how this went unnoticed during production, especially considering games like Assassin's Creed and Dying Light have normal open worlds. DICE didn't need to reinvent the wheel, yet here we are. The reason why I titled this video "The Best Idea Didn't Work" is not because of clickbait, otherwise it would have been all in caps, but I did it because I truly believed that an open world Mirror's Edge was the best idea for a sequel. Bad ideas have bad executions, but good ideas that still have bad results have hard to predict fallacies, and you guessed it, Mirror's Edge Catalyst has plenty of those. The first logical fallacy of the game is its scope. What is the scope of Mirror's Edge? By presenting itself as an open world, it implies some kind of replayability, things to do aside from the story. Yet all tasks the player has are to run from point A to point B with a timer above his or her head. The original game was linear, you had to go from point A to point B, so what consequences was making the game open world? So that there are more corridors to run around? Was the addition of the open world going to change the core concept of Mirror's Edge? If the answer is no, then it is admitted that the addition of the open world was useless in every way. If the answer is yes, then it implies that an open world Mirror's Edge is no longer a Mirror's Edge, and thus makes the previous point invalid as well. Even if mixing world depths in Mirror's Edge parkour mechanics sounded like the best idea in the century, in reality it only created an unresolvable paradox. But let's tackle something even more straightforward, the game's blueprint. What is Mirror's Edge about? Even if the vibe given by the spectacular visuals of both games could suggest some sort of cyberpunk-like game, in reality, Faith Connors is a post-service employee. You go around the city delivering God knows what to cheap people who can't afford UPS, or heck, even Poste Italiane. Your task is not that different from any Sonic game, finish the level as fast as possible. This is not a bad premise by any means, but it does inevitably create conflict with the quote-unquote best idea proposed. Open worlds not only give players more space to move around, but often a non-linear approach to missions. If you can decide where to go, it makes sense you decide how to complete the task. Yet since the great majority of missions are reach this point quickly, there is no room for the player to wander around. Not only is the player forced to follow the given linear route highlighted in red, but is penalized for daring to try something new. If you reach this point of the video, you might be wondering why I just didn't do a negative review of the game and leave it at that. Why bother taunting the game claiming that the idea was okay but it wasn't practical? The reason is because the idea of a Mirror's Edge set in an open world is still the best idea for the franchise, and if there's even going to be a Mirror's Edge 3, I would not mind seeing the developers try again. Sounds like a contradiction? Let me explain what could have gone differently. I'll cut to the chase. A hypothetical Mirror's Edge 3 needs to be done from scratch. There is no point in keeping anything from Catalyst apart from the visuals and movements. There needs to be a serious imagining of the whole core experience of the game. No more old school time trials, no more central stations, no more weird shaped map mess. We need to tackle all the problems previously described and propose a real solution. Firstly, use the open world. Don't make a silly go here go there mission, but make a briefing world where there are no indicators but what your eye catches. You see a cool tower in the distance, how do you reach the top? It's up to you. Climb from the outside, from the interior, enter from the sewers, jump from a crane, paraglide yourself from the next building, smash a window, hack the cameras, kill a guard, disguise as one, do whatever it takes to reach your objective. Freedom is the first, second and third topic tackled by the plot. Embrace it, and make the player feel that freedom. I'm not an expert in level design, but an idea that could enhance the exploration of the game is using verticality. Use the rooftops to your advantage. You have a bird eye on the city, you see all paths that can take. Make the player think what paths leads where without telling what obstacles lie ahead. Perhaps entering from the ventilation system requires stealth, while entering from the windows requires speed. Both options have pros and cons, and it is up for the player to make the final call. Of course, as I stated before, the postman simulator has to be upgraded to more tasks than simply the current motto, I'm a runner, I run. Since you can go anywhere in an open world, it would make sense for the player to find different items around the map and use them in missions. If roaming around the Evil Incorporated HQ you find the password to access the bank's vault, when you receive the mission Enter the bank's vault, you have secretly found a hidden way to complete that mission. Multiply these possibilities with thousands of items hidden around the map and you have yourself a branching experience. And lastly, reduce time missions as much as possible. Those work best when the games are linear and thus there is only one path to follow. Open world games sacrifice their openness to accommodate such missions, making them at best tolerable and at worst hideous. Exploration should be the key, not just speedrunning. I could talk for hours on ideas both myself and others have for Mirror's Edge 3, but all of them have the same keyword in common: freedom. The reason why players claimed the open world as the best idea for the franchise was because they were imagining the game I described now, not Catalyst. The idea is still out there. It might have not worked this time, but it's said that you can only learn from your mistakes. Mirror's Edge Catalyst is a mediocre game. I cannot say it was bad, but it was disappointing, and more often than not the latter hurts players the most. The joy of playing a true free open world Mirror's Edge is still out there, regardless of the missteps the second title took. Will there be a third title to make a trilogy? I do not know, but if there is, freedom has to be its mantra. If you made it this far, thank you one Central Stations too many times for watching today's video. If I have to say the words open world one more time, I think I would lose it. Did you play Mirror's Edge Catalyst? Did you find my analysis complete or did I miss something? If so, share your ideas and opinions down below. I promise there will be no timer. I wish you a wonderful day. Arrivederci.